So many people begin their year with New Year resolutions. And so we have this awareness that if we set goals, if we put things in place that we want in our future, then we'll tend to create more power for ourselves. Or as a businessman or woman, if you're planning your business objectives for the year, you write down the things that you want, you put goals in place. And as a consequence, goals have a lot of value for many of us in creating a powerful future for ourselves. I want to add to that power, and I'm going to give you another layer of power and distinction because I'm going to talk to you about the difference between goals and outcomes. Now, in general, when we think about written goals, on average, over 65% of people don't even write a goal down. They don't write it down. They're not even in the game. If you can't write something down that's important to you, that's powerful for you, that's creating your future, and you don't even write it down, now there are a few rare exceptions, but in general, the vast majority of people that don't even write them down, they're not even in the game. But from the 65th percentile all the way up to the 90th percentile, they go from a to-do list, meaning I'm going to write the goal down and it's just the things that I want, and then they start adding a little layers of complexity and more richness in the detail. They arrive on their way to the 90th percentile to a format that's called a SMART goal. And you've probably heard this in other teaching. Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based. Those characteristics of a goal or a New Year's resolution or a future value and action and power that you set for yourself, when you put it into a SMART format, that will create a lot of power for yourselves. And even if you've never had this class or a class like this before, when you arrive at the 90th percentile and talk to those people and ask them, so what are you trying to do this week, this month, this year? They will talk about their goals in a very powerful format, and it will have all the elements that is specific, that can be measured, that they can create actions on, that's realistic, and they have time frames that they expect to accomplish it. So for example, to say, I want to improve my marriage or I want to make more money this year, that's not a SMART format. To improve your marriage, well, what specific is it? How do you measure that? What actions do you take? Now, if you said, I want to get flowers for my spouse once a week, specific, you can measure it, it's an action you can take, it has a time element to it. The more SMART, the acronym, and the goals that you set for yourself, the more power that you're going to create. Now, what I'd like to challenge is that when you really get into this 90th percentile and above, I'm going to challenge it and tell you that they create it as an outcome. And so the first question becomes, what's the difference between a goal and an outcome? And generally people know goals are in the future and outcomes are in the past, meaning it's an outcome. I got it already. So how would I go into the future, which hasn't happened yet, and how would I achieve that? And so if I were to tell you that by April 19th of 2011, I want to run the Boston Marathon in 3 hours and 30 minutes, is that a SMART goal? And again, people think, okay, specific marathon. They might say for me, well, realistic, can you really run a marathon that fast? And I love that challenge because while I might not look like a marathon runner, this is the power of the human mind and the human will to create greatness. And I ask this question, I won't even take a year to get ready. If my child is dying and it was Y2K and all the power was down and all the roads were clogged and my doctor said, your child needs medicine in 3.5 hours and the pharmacy's 13 miles away from here, do you think I would be able to run that realistically in 26 miles today in 3.5 hours? And of course the answer is, and go back to the Torsen Way chart, I absolutely would, or I'd certainly die trying because I would be committed to that outcome. But in a goals versus outcome format, that is a SMART goal. It has all the elements, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based. But the question becomes, so how would I do that as an outcome? Now, this is an exercise that we'll do in class, or I'll do this in a private setting with you. But in reality, the answer is you're going to go into the future, and when I hold a rose under your nose and ask you to smell it and focus on it and think about it and perceive that rose, or I put you in a hypnotic state and tell you there's a rose under your nose, to smell it, to feel it, to focus on it. Do you think your brain, if I've done a good job hypnotizing you, do you think your brain knows the difference between whether the rose is there or not? Of course it doesn't. And so to run the Boston Marathon, you put yourself on race day. It is April 19th. I am running the Boston Marathon. I'm cresting Heartbreak Hill. I'm feeling the lactic acid in my muscles. I'm feeling the crunch of the paper cups as I run through the aid stations. You put yourself there and you see, hear, feel, know. You go into the 9 verbs and you complete the pattern over and over and over again. And thus, an outcome which is in the future happens in your body, and it's already done. And to illustrate what this realistically feels like, go back to the last part of my chart. This 65 to 90th percentile pattern, basically what they believe is that today was created and happened yesterday. Things I decided yesterday, things I did or failed to do, whatever happened in my life, in my past, is really what's creating today. Now, as you get into the more proactive, more driven, more, focused on accomplishing individuals, they'll do things like Stephen Covey, great author, be proactive as one of his 7 habits. That implies that there's still this planet out there happening, but rather than react to it, I'm going to proact to it. But that still puts me in a place where I'm just trying to stay ahead of something that's happening. When you get into the 90th percentile, today will actually be created not by reacting, not by proacting, but by driving yourself to a future tomorrow that you want to happen. And so in this 90 to 97th percentile, they are driven today by focusing, and look at where the arrow goes. It's pointing to tomorrow by pointing their compass north, pointing to where they want to go, focusing on the goal that they want. They're going to be very successful in this planet. But the top 1 to 3%, because they're creating the outcome, it's already happened, even though it's in the future. What this really looks and feels like, and the only difference in these two is where the arrow is. And rather than pointing your creation, your reality to a future that you want, you go into the future. Be that man or woman. Do those things. Feel those thoughts. Think, feel, be. All the 9 verbs in tomorrow, and bring it all back to today. So you're not pointed to the future. The future is happening now. And when you have the power to do that, then you are incredibly magical, because the magnificent future that you vision for yourself, it's already done, and you put it in your body. That's how Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. He ran that over and over and over again, and each time, the complete 4-minute mile, feeling the crunch of the cinders under his shoes, feeling his breath, feeling the acid in his muscles, and each time the stopwatch was clicking 3:59.7, 3:59.7. He did it over and over again. And so the top 1 to 3% go into the future. It's already done there. They bring that man or woman back. Those thoughts, those feelings, those actions, and that's who they are today. This is another great example that how you create power and reality for yourself is not as hard as you think. Call me, visit me, come to my website. There are many, many powerful ways to make life easier, to teach it to you in a way that you've not thought of before. Because again, in the counterintuitive world, a lot of you already do this. The outcome has happened, but you're doing it in the negative. You're going to the future where anxiety and fear has won out, and you're going to lose, and you're going to be defeated. And you put all of your attention, thoughts, focus, feelings on not allowing that future to happen. And we've discussed in other modules what happens when that is your psychological pattern. Top 1%, and a visionary, magical, extraordinary outcome. They go there, they grab it, they bring it back, and today, that is the man or woman who you want to be. More tips to follow. Call me, write me, visit my website. I appreciate you listening to these video clips. Thank you very much.